let's go ahead and start the meeting. We'll see if Maria comes in. Roll call. Everybody but Maria, Marta, John. Ronnie. Anybody else? Everybody else is here?
Pacheco usually comes.
Oh, right, Christine Pacheco.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's why you're here. You're like representing
Correct.
the
Yes.
city management. Okay. Approval of the agenda. Does anybody have any additions or corrections? Okay. Can I get a
Motion to approve.
thank
Second.
you? Thank you. Okay. Public invited to be heard. Is anybody here from the public? Nope. Okay. Approval of previous month's minutes. Let me just ask first, did everybody get a chance to read all of the attachments that Ronnie sent to us about the meeting? Okay. Does anybody have any corrections to the last month's minutes?
I have one small one.
Okay?
Just my name. It's spelled with 2 N's.
Okay.
Pretty common, don't feel bad.
So it's what?
It's Pillman with 2 L's and 2 N's.
Pillmann. Okay, gotcha. Okay, can I have a motion to approve previous month? What? Sorry.
I have a couple of.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay. So one, I think I was absent that time. And I think number A, update Sandy Cedar's name, last name is spelled incorrectly. The other thing is we've talked about this before, and I think it would move us along a little faster, is Ronnie expects us to turn in our information on our reports ahead of time, which we do. And I think that in the minutes, and even when we're in the meeting, maybe all we needs to be said is the report's attached, if there's any questions, so that way we're kind
So
of
we don't
along a
get-
little faster. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
So that way when you say no updates, that type of a thing. So we just, because they're all attached when this stuff comes out, so we all
Okay.
have read them.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to check something when Kami's talking. Okay, so, new business. I would like to introduce everybody to Kami Edson. And tell me your name again.
Dylan Zamora Silva.
Dylan. Very nice to meet you both. They are with the Vision Zero program for Longmont. And we did have somebody drop out who was going to be speaking today. And Kami was great about being available to come in because we've all been talking about Vision Zero. And we just never put it into a slot in a meeting. So as soon as we had a slot open, I was like, Ronnie, this is a perfect opportunity to get Vision Zero in here. So I'm so glad you were available. And Kami, take it away.
Sure. Thank you, Lonnie, and thanks for inviting us all today. I know last year you had a few presentations on the transportation mobility plan. And Vision Zero was going to maybe come with it a couple times, but then we realized it might not make sense being that we're so new and they needed to kind of focus on that plan. But Vision Zero and the Transportation Master Plan are really going to sync together. So some of the things that we talk about you may have heard before or might sound familiar, but we just want to start off by saying the goal is we are going to develop a Vision Zero action plan for the city. It will feather together with the TMP, and then whenever we do an update on either plan again, it will just become one plan. They were designed initially now because Vision Zero staff came on board after there was transportation staff, since we're pretty new as far as a strategy for the city. But ultimately they work together, they're intended to go together, and moving forward we won't have two plans, we'll always have one plan moving forward where the transportation mobility plan and Vision Zero are just interlinked and essentially the same as Vision Zero is sort of the strategy we want to infuse across how we manage our entire transportation system. So Vision Zero, go ahead Dylan, go to the next slide. These are this is our brief agenda for today. We're going to do an introduction review of kind of the what, who, how, when of Vision Zero, a real basic introduction. We know full well you will have lots of questions and we may not have time to get to all of them. So Dylan and I always like to offer, we're happy to come back We can meet again with a subgroup if anybody who wants to get into the weeds a little bit more. Maybe everyone isn't interested. If you all are interested, we'll work with you however it makes sense so you can get the information about Vision Zero you need, because we're just going to kind of scrape the surface in the time we have. We're also going to spend some time talking about senior-focused engagement, specifically around the action plan, because we'll get into that. You're one of our key primary groups that Vision Zero wants to focus on. So we want to make sure when we do this action plan and develop it, that we're really engaging with seniors in the right way and in all the different ways we can. So we want to introduce those two topics. Go ahead, Dylan. Sort of our plan. Oh, go ahead, we'll go one more. So just to launch right in, what is Vision Zero? So what I want you to take away from it is that it is not a program, it is not a project. It is really a set of strategies. It's like a different approach. It's a different lens on how to address managing the transportation system. And what it really is it's people-centered versus vehicle-centered. Ever since the creation of the car, and as you can imagine over the last 70, 80 years, it's just been moving traffic as quickly as possible has been what the transportation system is sort of focused on. In short, it's a lot more complicated than that, but it's really been a vehicle-focused system. Vision Zero flips that script. It really is saying, let's put people first. Let's put the most vulnerable people first, as like, how do we make our system safer so those who are the most at risk outside of vehicles are protected, so as whatever mode they choose to move around in, they're going to have a safe experience. And that probably doesn't feel true for most of us today. So that is sort of the idea, that we flip the script away from focusing on vehicles to putting people at the top of the sort of the food chain as far as who matters and who should we be designing and managing our system for. So you can see in the pictures just sort of a difference in the traditional approach versus the Vision Zero approach. Go ahead, Dylan. So in 2023, City Council adopted essentially a resolution that says we are now a Vision Zero city, and we have a goal to eliminate, or get to zero, literally eliminate, all fatal and serious injury roadway crashes by 2040. So we have 15 years to accomplish this goal. Everyone always asks, do you feel like, is it accomplishable? Is it doable? And I do. I really think I do. A lot of people doubt it. There's a lot of skeptics out there. But there is a pathway. There are systems. I'll introduce you to those on how we're going to get there. But just wanted to point out, you may be well aware of this, especially as informed board members, but the City Council has 3 core services. Transportation is one of them. Sorry, this is looking a little blurry. But I just wanted to point out in the transportation description, I don't know if you can read that at all, but it essentially says we would like a transportation mobility system that works for all modes, all abilities, with Vision Zero at its core. So Vision Zero is named as a council priority to let's start infusing these strategies as a way we manage our transportation system. So we're going to try to bake it into the entire system. That's why I want it to be clear. It's not a program or a project that's just going to operate independently as its own thing. It's going to be across kind of the whole system. Go ahead, Dylan. So how we accomplish Vision Zero, how do we get to that goal of fatal or zero fatalities and zero serious injuries, is there is a framework or an approach that's called the SAFE system. The SAFE system has been adopted from Europe, where they've already successfully implemented this. It's been adopted by the government, US government, state governments, local communities. This is the framework of how, how do we implement it that we reach there. So the system is made up of these 5 safe system elements. There's safer people, safer speeds, safer roads, safer vehicles, and post-crash care. All of the work we do moving forward should fall into one of these buckets. If we aren't addressing safer roads from a perspective of making it safer for the most vulnerable, while still moving traffic, which is still important, reducing speeds to the idea of, the higher the speed, the more kinetic energy. The more kinetic energy is, the more severe the crash is going to be. So the more we can reduce the kinetic energy in a crash, we should have less severe and less fatal injuries. So really looking at all the different ways we can approach making speed safer in Longmont. safer people, what can people do, their behaviors, their choices, how can the education they are receiving or not receiving. The road design, the way we design our roads right now, we have a lot of very wide open roads that whatever the posted speed is doesn't mean that's what the speed limit people go. Our brains resonate with the speed limit sign. We know logically what it's telling us to do, but what the road is actually guiding you to do is a totally different thing. So really thinking about how can we redesign roads, intersections, trailheads, things that can be more self-enforcing, that you're less likely to make a mistake and hurt someone or get hurt yourself. So road design is going to be key to this. Safer vehicles. Well, they keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger, right? The kinetic energy in a crash, if you have a little person and a giant truck, we know what's going to happen versus a smaller car, smaller people, what's likely going to happen. Slower speeds, all of these things, you can see how all of these working together are going to help us get to that goal of reducing our fatal injuries and our fatal injuries and our serious injuries. Post-crash care has a lot to do with what happens right when there is an emergency. What kind of care are people getting from the moment they're injured to the time they get to the hospital, what happens at the hospital, and then even beyond that, like survivor support. What sort of things can happen to make sure that people are getting the best care possible to increase their chances of surviving a crash. So all of these things together, the safe system, again, we could totally get into the weeds. We don't have time today, but if you're interested, we're happy to go down any of these paths with you. Go ahead, Dill. So who gets prioritized in Vision Zero? Vulnerable road users, VRUs. It's a very key term you'll probably hear me talk a lot about when we're getting jargony. But in short, the Colorado law defines vulnerable road users as someone who is not shielded by a vehicle and who is therefore at greater risk of injury or crash with a motor vehicle. So as you can see, Vision Zero is prioritizing vulnerable road users. Again, anyone who's not protected by all of the great protections that vehicles have advanced, though that doesn't necessarily make them safe for anyone outside of the vehicle. Safer for people inside the vehicles, not as safe for people outside the vehicles. So priority vulnerable road user groups for the city are youth, older adults, and those experiencing disabilities. They're kind of the logical ones. Go ahead, Dylan, I have one more. What this encompasses is kind of any pedestrian, walkers, anyone just using their feet in any way or their legs to move, any type of cyclists or wheeled, so even skateboarders, roller skaters, anybody like that, anyone using a mobility device, anyone on the roadside working, right? They're at a much more exposed and a high-risk situation. Emergency personnel, I mean, when we think about our tow truck operators or the construction workers, all of those folks. All of these folks do not have that protection. They're all considered vulnerable road users. So we really want to look at those 5 elements: safer people, safer roads, safer vehicles, post-crash care. All of that is how do we start addressing plans, policies, procedures, projects, programs that the city implements to make sure that these folks are getting the attention they deserve, because we've only been focusing on vehicles, if we're being honest. So this is kind of that flip the script. We need to start managing our transportation system just differently and focusing on these folks. Go ahead. So Dylan and I were both hired last year in 2024, about 6 months apart. So we're really just getting this work launched. I'm not going to go into detail about all of the things on this list, but just wanted to show you we've started a bunch of stuff. A lot of this stuff is still ongoing. We're looking at baseline data analysis. The city has been producing a crash report. A lot of you might be familiar with the City of Longmont crash report, which is great. Traffic engineering has been doing that for years, but it's really looking at all crashes. There's never been the concentrated effort to really hone in on what's going on with our fatal and severe injury crashes. So we're going back and looking at just the fatal and severe injury crashes, since that is the goal we've been given, is to reduce those to 0. And we're building data management systems and trying to come up with, what do we need to start being able to share more transparently what we know about what's happening in our fatal and serious injury crashes. We've been working real hard between Dylan and I to sort of identify who are these potential stakeholder groups and VRU, vulnerable road user groups, that we should be talking with. I'm connecting with before we launch our action plan effort to make sure that those folks can be involved in that effort. We've been pre-drafting a plan, just kind of getting it ready before we hire consultants who will kind of take over and, you know, do all the writing on that part. We've secured some grant funding. We hosted a World Day of Remembrance. We'll definitely share more about that with you all later. Each fall, it's a day to honor those we have lost or who have been injured, and to give family members or friends who have lost someone a place to come and honor folks that we've lost. We developed a website, a newsletter, a task force. There's subcommittees. We can talk a little bit more about those later. So what we know from the work that we've already completed, I'm going to just give you a sample of the type of data we've been analyzing, but we've really been honing in, like I said, on fatal and serious injury crashes. So here are some of the numbers. Go ahead, Dylan. So we have a lot of data and tables. We have been looking at our crash types. So when we look at what kind of crashes are going on in Longmont, left turns are our number one cause of fatal and serious injury crashes. The next most common is broadside to the next to the next. So these are the top 10 crash types contributing to our fatal and serious injury crashes. Go ahead, Dylan. We've also been working on some mapping kind of data. So not that you can see this or understand this here, but it's a heat map. Essentially, the yellower it is, the brighter it is. That is where our concentration, there's a higher concentration of fatal and serious injuries. So we've been looking at a numbers game, a types game, a locations game. We're working on all of this analyses behind the scenes, all this different type of data. We have almost done to present to the public, kind of here's our baseline data set that we know of to sort of launch into the action planning process. So all of this type of stuff is available if you want it. It's just not all publicly available yet because we're trying to get it formatted in a way that we can share it in a transparent, kind of publicly digestible way. Did I say? Yeah.
Go ahead, Tom.
So before this popped up, the heat map, there was the top 10 there.
Oh, yeah.
It looks like, so that left turn one, number one, that's vehicle to vehicle, correct? Mm-hmm. Number two is vehicle to vehicle.
A lot of them are going to be vehicle to vehicle.
And that's not, am I correct? That's really not your focus. Your focus
So we
is
still want to
pedestrian.
focus on reducing fatal and serious crashes as a whole, but when we make safety improvements to address these crashes, we want to make sure that pedestrians and cyclists and all of those are also prioritized in those design, if it's a design change.
Okay.
So it gets safer for everyone. Instead of just redesigning the road to move the vehicles and not considering other folks who have to navigate those same spaces. Because as you can see, pedestrian crashes still are top 5.
Yeah.
Bike crashes top 6. Like it's still happening, but yes, car to car is a higher amount of our fatal crashes.
Right. So that leads to a follow-up on the motorized bike. One of the things that I've noticed on my street, certainly driving around town, is the increasing prevalence of these electrified, not just bicycles, but these literally mini bikes or
The
motorcycles
motorbikes.
that are electrified.
Yeah.
I don't think, if they're supposed to be licensed, I'm not seeing them
There's
licensed.
no regulations at all at the state
And
level
they're
or
doing,
local level.
and they're doing down my street, they're doing 40 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So this
So it
thing
is-
about them supposed to be governor to a speed limit, the ones I'm seeing, they're doing a good solid 40 miles an hour down my street.
Yeah, that is definitely on anybody's radar who's working in this transportation safety field is this whole new category
Right.
of vehicles,
Right.
essentially, mode types, it's scary for some and dangerous and posing problems, and there needs to be, so there's definitely people working on it. So I don't have the perfect answer for it, but just know it's definitely on the radar and something
Good.
we'll work on.
Okay.
Let me get through this real quick. I only have 2 more slides. Oh, sorry.
Just two things. One,
Matt?
I do have a perfect answer
Oh,
for
good.
you. No, I'm just kidding. But I did want to note, John, that that is something we're looking at from a transportation demand management strategy, separate from the Vision Zero process as well. One of the things that we were looking at explicitly this winter was just like, what's the data show about where like electric bikes are going to be going longer term, and there are different classifications of electric bikes too. The data from the state indicates that we might be getting to. I have a question about that chart actually.
Oh, I was going to say, sure.
That we're expected to get to about the equivalent of 10% of the current registered vehicles on the road would, that number, so about 120,000-ish, would be electric bikes come 2030. Not in Longmont per se, but like across the state.
Yeah.
So that is a meaningful percentage of the transportation system now. And so we are actively thinking about some of those pieces and what types of trails or roads or bike lanes need to be in place to really support.
There's an active work group right now at the city looking at e-bike speeds, trail interactions, should we be posting speeds? Like all these discussions are definitely happening. There's just not necessarily been decisions or guidance or decisions made yet, but these discussions are happening with transportation folks, environmental folks.
Well,
all
and
sorts
these
of different
observations
folks.
and comments are particularly insightful to help
Yes, absolutely.
inform those kinds of considerations.
For
The
sure.
clarification I had on this
Oh,
chart
sure.
here.
And I'm sorry, because I didn't present it in a way that you can really see it or digest it.
Well,
But
so the fatalities versus
you
fatal
want to
crashes.
click one more?
No, so fatalities
Oh,
versus
sorry.
fatal crashes here. They're the identical, same numbers and years, and I presume the distinction, what that's trying to show is that
People,
it's people versus crashes.
incident.
But really what we would be taking away from that would be you could have like 20 fatalities from one crash,
Exactly.
right?
It
And so
just
it's looking at
happened
the
to
discrete
be-
number of incidents versus
Yeah.
the discrete number of fatalities.
Yeah, thank you for that. It just happened to be that they matched in these years,
Yeah.
but some years it could be that there's one fatal crash, but there was 3 to 4 victims, so this number would be higher. And so we will always try to present for consistently the people number first, the crash number, the incident number
Though
second.
interestingly, what the city has the most control over is the crashes.
Crash. Yeah. But, right, it's the people who are dying, it's the people who are matters. The people count, we want to get to zero, like there may still be crashes. We're not going to eliminate crashes in Longmont, but the goal is to eliminate those ones that are killing people and are seriously harming them. Their life has changed forever after. So, again, we can totally dig into data, and we will in our task force. We'll talk about that. That's a place where for members of the public who are really interested in getting into these topics, we have a task force. We can tell you about that too. And so we bring all of this to our public-facing task force as a way to share with the public, as well as the newsletter, website. And again, we're trying to develop some new ways to share the data more transparently. So just in short, go ahead and click the next one. We're working on, these are some of the, as we're finishing up our baseline data analysis in 2025, we need to update a lot with the 2024 crash information that has just been made available, and we're cleaning it now. So we need to update a bunch, and here are some data analysis things that we haven't done yet based on our fatal and serious injury crashes. Is really, what are those key locations? We sort of know from our heat map, but the specific intersections, the specific segments on the road, what are the conditions around those areas, like lighting, pavement, all these different conditions. Looking at, let's not wait for crashes to happen, but based on what we've learned from where they have happened, how can we be predictive and say, these conditions exist similarly in other places, so let's go fix them too before there's a fatal crash to try to prevent them from happening. As well as looking at, there is a lot of science and research behind what are the effective countermeasures for what you should be doing to rebuild your roads differently or manage your transportation system differently. So we'll be doing the work to match up based on locations and crash types and all of that. What are the proven effective countermeasures that make sense for what's been going on here? So we will address things from hotspots. We'll address things from like a systemic point of view, like where are the same things happening in the same way, let's go fix those situations. And then as well as like system-wide, where can we go and just be preventative in addressing these types of crashes? So good news is, one more, Dylan, all of this relates back to, like I said, the work in these 5 buckets. It will all connect to one of these safe system elements. If it doesn't, we probably shouldn't be wasting our precious resources on it. So we will make sure that everything that comes out of our Vision Zero action plan as far as recommendations, projects, budgets, that we can tie it to one of these safe system buckets to make sure we're staying true to. We know we're addressing the greatest issues and putting our limited resources where they need to go, and not focusing on things in the transportation system that aren't necessarily going to make it safer for folks out there. So, this is what's coming next in 2025. Lots to come about this, but we are developing that action plan. Like I mentioned at the beginning, the transportation mobility plan was adopted February, March, can't remember the exact date, but at the beginning of this year, with the idea Vision Zero is definitely mentioned and set up to basically be what comes next after the transportation mobility plan, which is really where we're going to get into those specific projects about where do we need to design and rebuild things. What are those specific programs we need to launch? What are those specific procedures we either need to change or develop from scratch that don't exist? What are those policies that exist that need to be changed or be developed that don't exist to make sure that we can accomplish the Vision Zero goal? Because we might have things in our standards and policies right now that would be really helpful to do, but our standards right now are a little outdated and may not allow us to. So there's going to still be a lot of setup work that needs to happen while we start figuring out what projects can we start now and seek funding for to get them done essentially as soon as possible.
Can I ask a quick question about funding?
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned earlier grant funding. Where are your funding sources primarily from?
So right now the city is funding at a certain level. There's internal city funds, funding sensitive, but we also got a federal grant. It's paused. It's one of those that's been paused. So we're looking at alternative funding sources to pay for this. We have found we're going to pay for the action plan with internal funds, so we don't just wait for federal funds. There's been a little action on the federal funds. The funding that we got was one of the first batches the federal government has released as of Friday. So we've been waiting 6 months, and it was released on Friday. So new language in contracts. We'll have to figure out, what's going on with the money, but we're moving ahead with internal funds as far as we can get while we still wait for grant funds. So to get to developing our action plan, which ideally we would like to start in September. Essentially, we're going to do an annual Vision Zero update, hopefully to council in August, using that as hey, we're launching into the action plan, sort of officially with the public in September. That's sort of the time frame we're looking at. These are the things that we're going to want to try to accomplish and work on between now and then. So this is like you, connecting with a lot of the advisory boards to talk about engagement, which is Dylan going to do next year. We are going to launch a bunch of the data sharing, this transparent data sharing platforms that we've been building. We want to get those launched before we start. We need to identify our consultants. We need to develop some additional educational marketing materials. We will be launching a steering committee specifically for the development of the action plan. I'll probably send some information to you, Lonnie, and maybe Ronnie too, about can there maybe be a representative from this board, from the staff perspective, and maybe the board member perspective on that steering committee, knowing that older adults is one of our key priority groups. We want to make sure that as the plan is being developed, that you all see from the lens that you can offer your expertise from, that we're not missing the boat on tackling things from the perspective of, will this help older adults? Just like we want to do the same, will this help youth and families? Just like the other, will this help folks with disabilities? Will this help reduce fatal and serious injury crashes? So we'll have an official group that will meet a set number of times. There'll be an invite for that, but just know I'll probably follow up with the specifics around that invite to get involved with you and Ronnie, if that's all right. Okay, I want to get through my stuff so we can get to Dylan's stuff. So real quick, screenshot of our very basic Vision Zero webpage right now. If you go here, here's the website, and we can send it in a link afterwards and share it with you all if that's easy as if you'd like that. Again, Dylan also sent around the sign-up sheet if anybody would prefer that way. But you can register online to attend our Vision Zero task force meetings, and that is a group of members of the public who have been learning about Vision Zero, why we've kind of been building up towards the action plan. Those meetings every 2 months right now. Our next meeting happens to be tomorrow night here. Start time 6, yeah.
5:30.
6 to 7:30. Had so many meetings this week, I got lost. So anyone's more than welcome to come. If you don't register, that's okay. You're still more than welcome to come. It just helps us. We provide food, so it gives us a food count. You can also sign up for a newsletter, but if you assign this today, you'll automatically get signed up. And then coming soon is going to be the action plan development. It's going to be really a lot of community-based discussions and events that we'll do, and then there'll be the steering committee as kind of the two big buckets that will move forward to engage with community.
What time
So-
is it tomorrow?
Oh, sure, 6 to 7:30 in the big front room. Not sure what that room's called. So I'm going to kick it over to Dylan now. We have time for question and answers at the end. I know we can open a huge can of worms about specifics, but we really want to use the rest of the time, if you're open to it, to have Dylan lead you through a guided discussion around community engagement and seniors, and then we can do our Q&A at the end, so we don't waste too much time on some of the stuff I presented, because I can always come back and do more with whomever
We want to be
wants.
respectful of time. I know it's 10:33, so this could be a whole presentation in and of its own. So I don't want to rush through this because this is really, really important. So
Okay.
I'll leave it up to you all.
I'm not sure exactly what time.
So we can always come back on the sticky notes. What you could do if we can't have this conversation today is just write down 3 groups, community groups, nonprofits, organizations that you want us to reach out to. And from now until we have this discussion about community engagement, we can try and reach out to them, start kind of building those connections. So we don't want to take up all your time because I know we only have 30 minutes.
We actually had longer planned for the other presentation, so you can still do about 15 minutes.
Sure.
Would that be okay?
That works for us.
Could
Happy
you
to
get
take
enough
advantage of
done
it.
that you feel like it's worth it?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
So
Good, let's go ahead and do
Do
that
you want me
then.
to?
No, I got
We'll
I'll
trade.
do it from back here.
Oh, okay.
All right. So don't do anything with the sticky notes yet, because we do have some questions here in the discussion. So part of Vision Zero will be community engagement. We really want to inform the action plan from the community level up, obviously changing some of the more systematic pieces, making our roads safer, and ultimately getting to the 2040 goal of zero traffic crashes and fatalities and serious injuries. So I did want to frame community engagement because there's so many different definitions. For the sake of this presentation, we'll kind of frame community engagement as an internal process with the purpose of working in inclusive and respectful ways to shape decisions, actions, impacts, or change. So just very broadly, this process is both purposeful and goal-driven, trust and relationship-focused, values-based and people-centered, inclusive and equity-centered, and impact and outcome-oriented. So just kind of the general definition for you all. The city operates on this levels of community engagement framework. So we start with the inform at the bottom. Information is given to the community, consult, obtain feedback from the community, involve, community input influences the process, and partner, work as equals. And each one of those has their subsequent kind of promises to those people who are in that category. So starting from partner, we'll work with you as equal partners, so that's shared decision making. And it is less commonly used because it's complex and it does involve a lot of technical knowledge of the project. Going down to involve, we'll work to ensure community concerns are understood and reflected in decision making. And this is an opportunity to contribute and influence the decision or proposition policy. And the city is ultimately the decision maker. And we will consider your comments and decision making at the consult level, get feedback from community. City is still the decision maker in this case. And then at the very bottom, we'll provide the community with accurate, balanced, objective information. The city is still the decision maker in this case, and it is more widely used. This is more like news, press releases, news, newsletters, and kind of, in some cases, outreach as well. So a lot of their projects, if not all of them, that involve community engagement will fall into this framework. And it's not to say that it kind of stacks up like that. I think the geometry of this framework is a little bit confusing. But it does, the level above it does require the level below it. So it's kind of builds on its own way. So in terms of Vision Zero engagement, what will it look like for older adults? So the initial phases from the Vision Zero engagement plan seek to gather input from older adults to understand engagement preferences, concept build around Vision Zero, the safe system, and transportation planning for equitable and informed input, and then create paths to engagement that meet people where they're at in languages they prefer. And the language can also be in simplified terms so that we're not using jargon and people really understand what is happening, but also in different languages just from different geographic places. And also build relationships for engagement. So one thing that we're noticing internally is that people who show up and like to engage with their city often come back and continue to engage with us. So really building relationships and sustaining those over time ultimately gets us further, and it makes the community cohesion a lot better. So that's kind of where we're going with the engagement for Vision Zero. So I had a question for you all, and this is just a broad question. Where are the consistent engagement gaps? So when someone has come to you, they can be city or in other situations, what do you all feel is often left out? What do you think is keeping you all from participating and giving really informed input and ultimately wanting to continue to engage? So a couple of considerations is ultimately is the engagement process easy to understand? Do you know why you're there? Do you know what is being asked of you? Language, are the terms easy to understand? Have you all been given kind of the introduction presentation as to the broader picture of the project or whatever is being proposed? Concepts. Do you have the information to give informed input? So do you know essentially what your input is, how it's going to influence the process? And it can be as simple as time and place. Is the engagement session, workshop, whatever it might be, is it easy to get to? Is it convenient? Is it accessible? And then ultimately, are you informed of how your input impacted the process or decision? So just a very general question for anyone who's willing to answer. What do you all see are kind of the gaps for engagement?
I'll start it off. I'm not sure if it's 100% in line with this, but
It's okay. It's open.
I'm going to go back to the time we talked with you on Spruce Avenue.
Yeah.
And what our concern was is that they had put 2 stop signs up on 3rd Avenue between Bowen and Sunset, two new stop signs. And so more traffic was diverting down to Spruce. And so the volume of traffic is increased on Spruce. And because Spruce has no stop signs or no really anything, no crosswalks, no speed bumps, no stop signs, nothing to really slow down traffic between Bowen and Sunset, there are times when the speeds get pretty high. Especially, it can happen any time of day, but I really notice it at like 6 o'clock in the morning when I'm taking the dogs out to go potty and things like that, and it's still a little bit dusk out, and there are cars doing easily 40 miles an hour down Spruce. Bottom line is, we had talked about, hey, what would it take to get some sort of mitigation put in on Spruce? I think the answer is that, this is from Caroline primarily, was that, well, we have ordinances, we have codes that say certain traffic counts, certain things have to happen before we would even begin to entertain doing anything to mitigate the speed on any street, much less Spruce. What that tells me is, because it's a very real problem, and it tells me that perhaps our ordinances and the way we're handling this today is not keeping up with what we need to get done. So we kind of dropped it because we felt like, we're not going to be able to meet Carolyn's criteria or the city's criteria. Therefore, I guess we're just going to have to put up with it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So you felt like you got a no solution answer, essentially, and that was kind of the engagement gap, if that's a fair summary.
Yeah.
To answer that directly, just so you know, that program has been acknowledged as lacking and meeting local road needs. It is currently in a whole redesign process. So we can bring forward a new program to TAB and council to eventually approve with a new budget, what is it going to take, what is the new program going to look like that is designed to address local road needs versus major arterials or collectors which have different needs, but the smallest road needs in a meaningful, responsive way. So, it doesn't mean we have the answers or the policies or the procedures in place yet or the budget in place yet to do anything on Spruce, but just so you know, that it's been acknowledged the current program is insufficient and a new program is being designed, also incorporating Vision Zero perspective. So hopefully in the future, that experience of a no response doesn't happen when these kinds of conversations happen, because we know lots of you have had those sort of similar interactions, unfortunately, when it comes to what can we do on the local roads.
Yeah.
So we know there needs to be a better,
Yeah.
a different option.
And keep
Or
in mind
options,
too,
but yes.
the other thing that's happening is because of housing ordinances that have been enacted, ADUs, and infill, the density along those local roads is only going to increase, right? Which increases traffic and pedestrians and everything else, right?
Okay. Anyone else? And good.
This would probably fall into the exact same thing, but I'll mention it anyway. I know that one thing that keeps coming up is the idea that there should be stop signs around every school.
Mm-hmm.
There should be 4 stop signs. I know in my neighborhood, it's Central Elementary, and it's hard because Gay Street is a feeder road, and yet it goes right next to the school. And so, is that something that would come from this new designing of priorities and things that could be addressed instead of getting an answer, no answer?
So, yeah, the idea of, so great question, and know exactly what you're talking about. Very common request as well, right? And the way current procedures and policies are set up, it's not set up to easily say yes to that necessarily. So the idea of a safe routes to school plan for the city, just like safe routes through neighborhoods, safe routes to parks, kind of the idea of a safe routes. What are those policies and procedures when I mentioned that we need to go through and change them? And one of the ones that I know is going to be recommended for people to react to is just that. 4-way stops at all corners around sort of key destinations, so whether that should be senior centers, rec centers, schools, like right key destinations where there is a lot of potential interaction between vehicles and vulnerable road users, right? And again, that's addressing slowing, safer speeds, safer roads, safer people. All of those safe system elements can get addressed by a simple shift like that type of policy as an example. It's not a simple thing to make happen overnight, but that has already been identified, and I know it will be a recommendation that gets moved forward for people to say, yes, we like it, or, no, we don't need that.
Right.
So that and many other examples like that will come forward through the Vision Zero action planning process.
And I
But I can
just
tell you, I know that one for sure is there, yes.
and I just want to mention that one of the outcomes is the corner of Longs Peak and Kaufman, and
Oh, okay. yeah.
the new corner redesign, and I walk it every day, twice a day, and it's just great. It's really slowing people down. It's making people realize that they can't blow through the lights, and they can't, just take it upon themselves to kind of decide whether they're going to go the speed limit or speed up. It's encouraging people to slow down because they have left lane arrows, but the going forward is still red. So you can't assume that you can just do whatever you want anymore. And I like that idea. I like the whole idea of, we used to put a lot of emphasis on moving cars quickly through the city. How can we make, cars go quicker through the city? And now the emphasis is on how do we slow everybody down? It's not about making people happy to get to work, faster or anything like that. It's about being safe and making people feel like they live in a safe town. It's safe to walk on Main Street. It's safe to be, around the areas that are heavier traffic, but still, people like to walk on them. So, that whole idea is just a cool thing that they are coming back to the idea of make people go slower. Narrow roads now, or, don't widen roads so much. New developments are going to have, narrower roads because, not narrow, but you know what I mean. They're not going to make it so that these big, wide open streets are there because you do kind of give everybody permission to go fast when you have wide streets.
To kind of loop it back to what Dylan asked, to have these kind of conversations with more people, even beyond like your advisory board, is there something that we can make sure that Dylan and I are very intentional about when we sort of launch the Vision Zero action plans, like engagement, here's how we're gonna do it with community members around the process, or more concepts like what should we make sure we do to set those conversations up for success these similar kinds of conversations up for success.
Right, and that takes us really to the next slide, which is what the sticky
Okay.
notes are for.
Sorry, I kind of.
Sorry.
No,
Me too,
it's
sorry.
not.
Your
The
conversation.
discussion is the important piece, so I'm glad we're having it. So with the sticky note, that's what I would call an engagement activity, right? We're trying to get feedback from you all, and the way I see it, this is really the start of a discussion, a conversation, as we hope to involve you all throughout the process. So if you could write 3 keywords or a short phrase of what the perfect engagement process, so really thinking about the ideal for you, for your groups, for the people that you interact with, your neighbors, what would that look like? And to make it a little bit easier, you can use these examples, because those are in some ways what is often overlooked or falls short. So just 3 or keywords or a phrase, and then we'll take that and we'll start really planning around that feedback, and we'll also be going to other groups, asking similar questions, and that's going to start informing the engagement plan. So if you all would go ahead and do that, and then we'll start wrapping up the discussion. Let me know if you have any questions too. I'm happy to.
And I just wanted to say too that looks like what they're going to do at 21st in Maine is that same type of intersection, and I think that will be so good because, you know, that'll make people realize they can't just blow around town or blow down Main Street. You know, they're going to have to stop at 21st and allow bikes by and people walking and everything else.
Thank you for mentioning that. And just as a point of awareness around that, that was the first project that Dylan and I got involved in as staff to infuse the Vision Zero lens into an existing project at the city. There's a lot of, we got hired that, you know, they're well already in progress, and there's not a whole lot of opportunity to design change at this point, though we're still trying to, you know, we're learning about all the existing projects and seeing them through and being asked for our opinion. But Dylan was really helpful in trying to get in there and inform the engagement process before it was too late. It wasn't necessarily the most perfect engagement process, but he is an engagement expert, and so that's what we're going to be doing more and more of, is to make sure. So we tried to set that up, even though we weren't involved from the very beginning, but earlier than any other project at this point, since our time frame has started, to say let's consider these Vision Zero and community engagement elements through the entire process. So I'm glad that you said you have noticed or see it, as that we hope that, and it won't mean it's necessarily perfect yet,
Right.
but that has been the first one that we've been able to have some involvement on as a construction project from very early on. So hopefully you'll just see more and more of this. But again, we need to align city policies, city standards, city budgets, all of this to, you know, really make it rock and roll.
Right.
And that's going to take some time on the bigger design projects, but we are very excited and happy to see where that went compared to where it could have gone. So we may not have got everything on our wish list, but it's going to definitely be an improvement. So thank you for acknowledging that.
And on our newsletter, there's a section for projects supporting Vision Zero, so you'll be kept up to date with projects that are kind of implementing the safety first kind of philosophy and approach as well.
And hopefully at the end of our action planning process, right, we'll have a list of programs and projects, all of that, but they will come with what is the recommended budget needing, what's the time frame, almost a little bit more what is the prescription needed to get this done, versus let's just name, there's plans that just name projects, we would like this to happen, but there's not really kind of the prescription for it. Our plan, or the goal with the Vision Zero action plan, is to build off of, like we said, the TMP that sort of identified, we would like protected bikeways. We would like there to be completed sidewalk segments. We would like there to be a lot of great things were named in the TMP, but it didn't necessarily provide the roadmap of how to get there. The Vision Zero action plan is going to provide that more specific roadmap of what elements, what proven safety, countermeasures, what budget, what time, like let's get the prescription on paper so we can go get it budgeted and approved and done, essentially. There's some of that in the TMP, but hopefully Vision Zero will bring in that greater detail on what actually needs to get done and where. That might not be in the TMP now, which is why we said we're going to feather them together now, but moving forward they will be one plan.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, so I just wanted to, so Dylan, Cami, first, thanks again for coming today and for engaging with us here, I wanted to just note that I think these types of conversations tend to attract people who are cyclists, avid walkers, avid transit users, and yet the people who, or the users of our transportation system, where this is most actually intended to address, are the people who drive. And I think that includes everyone here from time to time too. And so I want to just make sure that the engagement process maybe tries to work slightly counter to the inherent bias of who would generally show up to those meetings, because really we're trying to address driver behavior at the end of the day. And so I just want to make sure that we're reaching into spaces and parts of our community where people are not as either more inclined to or not able to bike or walk as much or take transit as much, because I think that's really
It's great feedback.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, sir.
And agreed.
I really like this approach. You know, it's really well thought out, and I'm almost overwhelmed with all the information you're throwing out here. But I got a comment about your priority groups. We had young people,
Oh, yeah.
that's the backways, older seniors, and disabled folks. I just have a general comment about you need to collect. All seniors are not the same, and I know you know that. But to go along with your point, all seniors, we're different.
Yeah.
I'm a whole lot different than when I was 65. You know, and you need to, when you start soliciting information, regardless of how you do it, you need to slice and dice that data in ways that you get information that comes out that shows differences between groups. For example,
Yep.
one group is ignored all the time. People over 85. There's lots of them, and that is one of the biggest growing groups that we have in the community. I don't remember what the figure was, but it's a huge figure. So people over 85, you know, they have accidents, they like to get around, but they're generally ignored. Minority populations and older, even 85 minority populations. But I'm talking about really doing some slicing and dicing to really get at, you know, some of the needs of specific groups. And I wonder really if some of the concerns or the problems that older adults have, are they really that much different than people in general? I don't know. You know, I know I'm not as sharp and quick as I used to be, but I haven't had an accident in 25 years. You know, so do we really have more accidents or more fatality? So I guess I'm just saying, kind of over and over again, you really need to dig into the data and don't treat seniors as one group, because there's a whole bunch of subgroups within those that are 55 and older.
Very great point.
That's a great point.
And we will commit to doing just that.
Okay,
Yes.
but
Yes.
Let me just throw this in too, especially seniors with mobility devices.
Okay.
They're not driving,
Right.
but they have scooters, they have walkers, they have to get across the street a little slower than everybody else. I love that Main Street has increased their time that it takes to, you know, they give you to walk across. Right in front of Village on Main, where I live, is 20. It counts down from 20 to go ahead, and it used to be, I think, 12. And they would literally have to surround somebody on a walker to get them over to the pump house. You know, they'd have to, like, all the friends would surround them and make sure that no cars started going when the light was already red, because they couldn't get across the street. So anyway,
And
I'm just saying
yeah.
that I'm seeing those improvements, and I'm really liking it. I think it's
one more thing.
Thanks.
I have been chewed out, I don't know how many times. I used to work outside a big government building, and I get chewed out by seniors all the time, because I see that stop sign is 20, 19, 18, and you know they think that they have to stop from the very beginning. My point is, keep it simple.
Are you talking about the
all
flashing
instructions,
sign?
keep it simple.
Yeah. Flashing those signs,
Mm-hmm.
yes, it's common that they are commonly misunderstood. Does that mean
Right.
stop for 20 seconds? Or does that mean
Right.
go for 20
Really?
seconds?
I'm not
Because it
quite-
means go, but it's in red, and
simplifying
Yeah.
signage.
I'm not
and-
quite sure how to simplify some of
yes.
this stuff, but
But I know what you're
A
talking
goal.
about. And I was just gonna mention what you talked about with what they're called leading pedestrian intervals, so like giving more time to cross or crosswalk is something we're looking at to make a recommendation as a system-wide change. So of course, start where we are having crashes or where key vulnerable populations are, and eventually get it so that that is just a standard for the city of Longmont, and it gets everywhere. So that'll be, it's already on the radar for the traffic engineering team, they're already working on it, but you'll probably see that as one of the recommendations that comes out. That is maybe an earlier one that we can say, hey, we accomplished it sooner than maybe redesigning all the roads, let's say as an example. But
Okay.
so these kinds of, Longmont, I will just want to caveat that Longmont has not been trying to focus on safety for this whole time. There are still really good projects that were here before even we started. And people were working and doing Vision Zero without having kind of a Vision Zero ordinance. They were doing it, but there have been a lot of, there's still systemic barriers and internal barriers to really transforming the transportation management system to really be vision, like walk the talk and bake it into all the departments, all the systems, all of that kind of good stuff. So if you all think of any other groups we should be talking to or ideas that after you go about like, oh, consider this when your engagement plan, please follow up with us. You may be getting there. I'll let you close us out.
Yeah, for sure. Everything you all said is great
Beautiful.
feedback. We want this engagement process to be a little different than it's typically done. We want to focus on qualitative information. So, how people identify themselves over 85, or mobility scooters, or even having storytelling, interviews, like really understanding what it means to use our roads, and then having quantitative data to back up the progress, where we're at, where we're going, and all of that stuff. So just wanted to kind of close out. Here is the newsletter, which you all already have signed up. There is our how to contact us, and then just the general public information officer, which is not too relevant here, but if there's any other questions, reach out to us. We're happy to come back and continue this conversation.
Does anybody else need this before we go? Did everybody get a
Anybody else
chance?
want to sign
And then
up
I'll
for the
take the sticky
newsletter?
notes. Sure.
Sure, and I can collect your stickies while I'm on this end of the table.
That's
okay.
So I'll get back to you.
Thank you. Well, thank you, everybody, and thank you for the bonus time.
You're
to
welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you both very
Yeah,
much
talk
for
to y'all
coming and
soon.
doing
Talk
this.
soon.
As I said, we've been talking about it for a while. We'd always had it as a topic of interest that we wanted to have, planned for a meeting. So when we had the opportunity, I thought, perfect, this is a Vision Zero opportunity, and it worked out perfectly.
I
So.
forgot we brought goodies.
Okay.
So they're backpack or bag covers, so when it can keep your stuff safe, but it also has reflective material on it, so if it is dark and you happen to be outside and unprepared, or maybe you don't have anything else, this will at least help you be a little bit more visible and hopefully help keep you or your stuff a little bit drier. So please take them, take more for families. We'll just leave them all here, take as many as you want. If you want me to come pick them up, or just keep them here at the senior center and give them out.
Thank you.
The goal is to get them out there, so we just happen to have some left over. Oh, and Bike to Work Day, a big local bike event is coming up on June 26th. If any of you are interested in attending pancake breakfast, I think by the Kiwanis Club, they always serve pancakes.
Down at the Public Safety
Down at
Building.
Civic Center outside the library. There's going to be, I think, 12, it's going to be the biggest one the city has ever had. There's going to be, I think, 12, 15 plus vendors there, so much bigger than ever before. And just, in the summer, Bike to Work Day is pretty fun. Lots of people show up and stuff, so free prizes and things like that. So if that floats your boat and you would like to come participate or walk over, bike over, whatever, just be there.
So the 3rd and Kinbar, the public safety.
Oh, so no, in between the library and the city building, there's that little plaza
Oh, the little
outside.
plaza there?
Yeah, right there. Between 3rd and 4th on Kinbark.
Yeah.
Sorry, that may have been what you said, and I just heard it wrong.
It's,
Yeah.
I know where you're talking about, in front of the library.
Yes, right outside the library on the west side.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
Great.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much for coming. And I just want to back up just a sec. I was remiss in not introducing Matt. I know you introduced yourself to everybody, but this is our liaison with the city council, and it is the first meeting he's been able to make. The 3 meetings he had, the 3 months he was already the new member, he couldn't make it because he had prior plans for the first Wednesday of 3 months. So this is the first Wednesday he's been able to make it. Welcome. We're so glad to have you here. We look forward to your input and your connection with the city. We look forward to giving you information that you can pass along. We look forward, thanks you guys. We look forward to the city giving, you passing information from the city back to us.
Absolutely. And that's really my role here. Actually, I put my hand up to volunteer to serve on this board, not knowing the schedule originally back in February, but I wanted to be a liaison to this board partly because understanding the senior community here is actually my biggest blind spot. And I wanted to make sure that when I'm making decisions generally for city policy and also helping to serve this population specifically, that I am more versed in the issues, the concerns, and the types of solutions you're working on. So I am here not by assignment, but by choice.
Okay.
And everybody, Ryan's here to represent the senior center and the management. Ronnie couldn't be here. He had prior engagement. Christina couldn't be here. And John apparently is traveling or something. So. Okay. So.
Everyone seems to know that, and they're jealous.
Oh, yeah. Must be rough.
He's from Hawaii, isn't he?
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yep. His family over there, which is just cracks me up. Oh yeah, I'm just going to visit family in Hawaii. Yeah. Okay. Let's go ahead. I had the agenda up. Thank you. Food security updates. There's really not a lot to update because John didn't give a report. But remember, everybody, that the table is going to be at the senior center. Remind me of the date. I want to say the 14th. Okay, good. It's Saturday the 14th. I noticed from all the emails going back and forth that people have already done some training and they've signed up for shifts. So I think we're pretty much covered. If you are interested, I'm doing my training tomorrow. I'm online tomorrow to do the training, so I'll be signing up too. And that way, it's going to be with Longmont Food Rescue. It's going to be here at the Senior Center. I believe it's 10 to 12, correct?
10 to 11:30, I think.
10 to 11:30.
That was the question that came up several times, was 10 to 11:30.
Stopping at 11:30?
The center closes
right.
at 12, they need to be out of here by then.
Right.
If somebody's here until 12, we'll just deal with it.
And we'll be cleaning up anyway and stuff, so. But yeah, it's looking to be fully staffed and very supportive. So there is in your packet a flyer. You can print it out, you can send it out to people, you can do whatever you want to publicize this. And yeah, it looks to be a very well-organized and big night, or big day here, so.
Can I jump in on that too? First of all, thank you for all the work that went into the food security discussion. Council was, John presented to council 2 weeks ago, I believe, on the 20th. Thank you. On the 20th. That was the last meeting before last night. Just last night, I do have an update. I made a motion last night to advance the conversation with council following the presentation to have an intentional discussion about adding food security to our priority list. So I just wanted to let you know that was unanimously supported by council. 6-0, we had one member absent, and that will be happening at a later date. I don't know when exactly, but the information you all provided and John's delivery of that were excellent, and I think it really made people think. You also had the advantage, I don't know if you watched the meeting, but there was a pretty large crowd that night for other issues.
Yeah.
And so you had the advantage of getting a much broader audience on that topic just by sheer
Well, plus
circumstance.
the boy that presented after John
Yes.
was very
Yes.
impactful.
Yes.
He made a big difference. It was a young guy who was a student at NIWA.
Yeah.
And he talked about how he's had food security in his life and how much help and how helpful it's been to him. So,
So it was a
that
meaningful
really,
night and a very effective presentation. So
and
kudos
Meals
to
on
everyone.
Wheels also did a presentation, a short one, so it was really good about the whole topic of food security.
Thank you, Matt, for doing that.
Of course. Thank you guys for all
Yeah.
you guys did the hard work.
we're really excited to hear that they took it as a priority. That's what we were hoping for.
We're having a discussion about adding it to the priority. You guys know how the process works, but like,
Yeah, it's slow. It's
we
like, hurry
haven't
up and wait.
officially confirmed it as the priority yet, but we're moving forward in that direction.
Okay, board communication. Ronnie and I were having a discussion about the having to meet the open meeting law, the open meeting rule, and boy, can it get confusing. So here's what we're saying. When Ronnie sends out anything for the board, he blind CCs everybody on it, okay? So that if you send a reply, you just send it back to Ronnie. You don't have to send it, it doesn't go to everybody, it just goes back to him. And that's the way it needs to be. If you get anything with everybody's names on it, and it is about board information, you cannot reply all. You can only reply to the person who sent it. First of all, it keeps everything a little tighter. But with the open meeting law the way it is, we cannot be having these, things going out by anybody but Ronnie. And as long as it's about board information, if, say I want to have something sent to the board, I have to have it sent through Ronnie. I can't just send out anything, like I sent out something about my birthday the other day, and I knew that was okay. But if it's got anything to do with board business, it's got to go through Ronnie. He has to be the one to send it out. And you cannot have any type of email chains that require more than one person. When we were doing something on the outreach, I had to send a separate email to everybody, just so that it wasn't a chain that was going out. That's also the case with any type of literature, flyers, anything like that. It always has to go through Ronnie. And Ronnie's fine with it, and when we talked about the fact that for our outreach committee meetings, we're probably gonna have to post them because they're gonna have more than one board member on it. Everything goes through Ronnie. Ronnie and oh my God, I just spaced on your name.
Bianca.
Bianca, I am so sorry. Ronnie and Bianca handle all those technical things. They make sure that the notices are posted, they make sure the proper people are notified, and they make sure that we have somebody to record it. So that's all done through Ron. So if there's any question about board communication, please let us know. Because with the open meeting law, it can get pretty dicey,
So I just have a question about outreach. If the majority of the board is concerned about outreach and has some information or wants to know what's going on, can it be a part of this meeting?
Yes,
Because in that way, this is posted,
right,
and we wouldn't have to do anything extra, we're all here anyway.
exactly.
So do we want to, I don't know, half an hour, maybe, do you want to do something like that, or talk about it, or am I off base?
You mean if there's time at the end of this?
Or just have it as a, in here each time?
That would be fine. However, there are other items that we've set up for people to come in and speak at our meetings. I don't know that there's time to do it. If there is, I would say yes, a perfect time to do it because everybody's already here and this is already official. So let's look at that. Let's look at whether there's time at every meeting that we can take to do, and there's information to actually report that we can do it about outreach, because it is one of our newest projects. And it is getting to the point where we're going through the steps of getting it straightened out. And now we're gonna be putting things into action, so let's look at that, okay?
Lonnie, I agree with everything you say, I understand everything you say, I just don't like it. And it's not you. When I was chair, I understand how difficult it is to communicate with people on the board.
I know.
And I guess I'm directing this at you. If there's a possibility in the future that we could change the ordinance in a way that's not so tight. Now, I understand it came out of a situation where there was a lot of communication within the board that caused a problem, and I don't know what that was, but that's how it all started. I think this is really overkill, and I would really encourage the council to try to maybe look at that ordinance to see if that can be changed. one thing that I found particularly offensive was if I wanted to communicate with the board, I had to do it through Ronnie, and Ronnie expected me to do it. And of course, he was trying to protect the proper way of doing it. But I felt, why can't I communicate with the board directly? Why can't I get input directly? Why do I have to go through someone else that could modify? He didn't, but he could modify what I was trying to get across to the board. So it's not a good system. I understand how it came about, but I would really encourage the council to maybe take a look at that at some point.
Let me just say, and I'm going to ask you for input on this too. Is it a national rule? It's a national law, isn't it?
So yeah, it really.
State ordinance.
So the Open Records Act is a state law.
Okay.
So council is subject to the same, frankly, like relatively frustrating restrictions as well. And that the goal and spirit, which I think we all understand is transparency, the impact and consequence is somewhat reduced or inhibited discussion or communication, and that's a real consequence. And so, you know, at the state level, that would be a balancing act there. I will go ahead, since I'm not entirely familiar if everything from the state law applies to every advisory board in the same way as it does to a decision-making policy body like council. I will talk with the next council has like a monthly advisory board kind of discussion where we kind of recap everything we've learned from different advisory boards and make sure that everyone's aware of things that are going on. I'll bring that up as a question just to clarify. I might check with our attorneys in advance of that. Dave, I fully understand how annoying that is because.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, it feels like we can't have as thoughtful a discussion until it's in this moment. And I remember even last meeting where you guys were discussing, hey, can we go to the Friends of the Senior Center meeting? And yes, if it's one person, but not like it just reduces the community engagement process too if you're trying to have multiple people and multiple perspectives present.
Right. And that's where it's going to come up because with outreach, we're going to be looking at getting involved with the Friends and other things too. And
well, so the safest way to do that is to invite them here, where we already have this recorded and already have postings of the meetings and agendas. That would be the easiest way to invite them into the space. But I also understand the value of going to where people are, and especially when you're trying to do effective engagement.
Yep.
So, as someone as a former town clerk, I understand state statutes pretty well. But yes, so to your point, yeah, you guys are an extension of council. So whatever rules they're bound by, you're bound by the same rules because you're an extension of them.
Even though we're not quasi-judicial, right?
Yeah, that doesn't make a difference. Their rules are even a little bit more different because they actually are making decisions. You're advising, but you're still an extension of them because they're authorizing y'all as a board to be as a group.
The quasi-judicial is you should be fortunate that you're not.
Yeah, essentially planning is a mess.
So I was on Planning and Zoning Commission before I was on council, and the quasi-judicial situations there really they don't want you, it's no communication with anyone who might have a vested interest in that decision. Don't be seen driving by the site beyond your normal commute. Those were the guys, other ones, those are the, I mean, you can pass by it if it's your normal thing, but they don't want you to be scoping the site in advance. They want all the information presented in one meeting where it's a public hearing and everyone feels like they have a fair process, both the applicant, the developer, and any residents or other members of the community who want to speak. So be grateful that you're not a quasi-judicial board or dealing with quasi-judicial issues, because that opens up a whole different dimension of this. But certainly that doesn't mean there aren't frustrations that come from this.
And I think the biggest point is that you're not trying to avoid quorum, as you're still meeting without having a quorum. That's usually the biggest thing about it, is you're not trying to have just a few of you meet to make a decision, but it's not really a meeting because you don't have a quorum. That's typically where all that comes from.
Okay. I know that
I will discuss and see if there's any flexibility.
Okay, good.
I know that
I don't
Christina.
think there's much.
That is
It would. Christina mentioned that she had a discussion, I don't know aspect, regarding to what, but about part of that discussion with the attorney was about open meeting law. So I know she dipped her toe into it for some reason, but I don't know how much she got into it. So, okay, outreach update. I am going to do something quick. We met with Guillermo, and we're extremely impressed. Guillermo had so many good ideas. He was so engaged in what we were doing. He was just really happy to hear we were going to do it. And one thing that's going to help out is the information that we collect for our outreach is going to be used in other areas of the city. So it's going to help, it's going to give them data that will be solid and they can use for other things. So one thing he did recommend, and you'll be seeing it, so that's why I'm mentioning it, he wants us to put up a big map of the city in the senior center lobby and have people put pins where they live. He's going to ask, we're going to ask 3 questions. Where do you live? Where do you know other seniors live who may not have access or may not use the senior center? No, where do you know your friends, other friends, senior friends live, and do they have access or do they use the senior center? Those 3 questions are going to start out this whole data gathering. And the nice thing is that once they have that data, we don't particularly know 55 and older what, if the data includes 55 and older. So this will include 55 and beyond. And it just help us out to see, where we need to emphasize outreach and where we need to target and things. So we will be doing that. And then once we do that, we'll start to look into going into neighborhoods. As I said, if they don't come to us, we'll go to them and letting people know about what's involved in the senior center. They already have a flyer made up that we can use, but that will be down the road. And we're looking like 2026. This is going to be a slow process because one of the things that came up was, what if we all of a sudden got a huge response to our outreach? Can the senior center handle it?
Right.
What if all of a sudden they opened up one morning and there were 20 people wanting to sign up, or 50 people wanting to sign up? So what we have to do is, as we're moving forward, getting information out, we have to do it slowly and see the impact of each thing we do. So if it does get to the point where we're kind of stretching, we're getting filled up, then we have to kind of pause and wait and see about getting more staff, see about, hitting council, going to council and putting in more money for the budget, and things like that. It's going to be a very slow and intentional process, but every time we meet with the city person or meet with the representative, they help us look at different areas we hadn't thought of. So we're going to be quite educated in this by the time we're finished. But as we're doing it now, we're really listening to the recommendations of people because they know how the city goes more than, how the city works that we don't know. So we're learning. Any questions, anything like that? It's more thorough in the report I put out, so you can learn more about outreach. AAC representation. Eric, what do you think? Have you been looking into it at all?
I've looked into it. I mean, I can probably do it. I just need to check what the dates are, what Fridays are, because I've got another commitment on Friday afternoon, at least through August.
Okay.
So I can tell you that it will meet in June, which is this week. It will not meet in July, and then it will meet again and start again in August. It's always the first Friday of the month unless it's a holiday.
If it's from 9 to 12, where do you meet in May? In June.
In June, we're meeting at Lions Library, the Lions Library.
Okay, so I'd have to come here.
You can do it by Zoom, because they always have it
okay.
available by Zoom as well. Yeah.
Yep.
Then,
And as I told you, people usually meet here and take a VIA bus, right? Are you still doing that?
Yeah, VIA
Okay.
does provide a bus. So if you're in Longmont and you want to ride, just come here and they'll pick you up.
They'll pick up everybody here and bring them to Lions. Or in July, where's that going to be?
There is no meeting in July.
Or how about August?
Of that one, I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know where it is in August.
So is it this Friday?
Yes,
Yes.
I can't do this Friday.
it is by Zoom too. Well, I will be there.
Okay.
So, yeah.
After that, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
The advantage to being there, which I think you'll probably agree, is you have the opportunity to visit with other people from other parts.
Right.
Zoom is just Zoom.
Right?
Yeah.
And as I was finding difficult when I did have to go with the Zoom meeting, I could hear the questions being started, the discussion was started from the table, but I couldn't hear the responses from the crowd type of thing, so
Yeah, they have
it
this
just
little-
made it easier to be there.
Yeah, it's not the best.
But having the transportation is helpful, so. Okay, well, so you feel like you can commit to it?
Yeah.
Excellent. Welcome. I'm so glad you're going to be doing that. And you're going to find out that, boy, AAC, they move things right along. I mean, there's so much information in that 3-hour meeting. I used to come out of it and I'd be like, whoa, I need to kind of decompress from this one because they're constantly doing things. They're up on all the legislation that goes on in the state, and you just keep getting information all the time from them. So you look like you have a question.
Oh, I will ask you something.
Sure.
Going back to the Friends meeting,
Okay.
what was the decision on that? Could we?
We
a
haven't
number
made
of
it
us-
yet. We haven't made it yet. We haven't gotten that far.
So 2 or 3 or 4 of us could attend the Friends meeting.
You know what? I'm gonna say I'm wrong on that. We did go into a discussion because what Ronnie was bringing up, which was very helpful to know, if we just went and didn't participate,
Yeah.
we just went as, you know, as like, you know, the peanut gallery. We could do that. Nobody, you know, if you're just representing yourself, if you're just there as another member, I mean, not as a member of this
Yeah,
board.
well, that makes sense.
And not
Yeah.
getting into discussion about anything or representing any opinions to the Friends Committee about what we talk about. If you just go and sit there, then everybody could go, this whole meeting could go.
That's the most important distinction in that
Yeah, exactly.
conversation.
I'm
If
glad
you're,
you
if
brought
you're
that
talking
up.
about, yes, ditto. If you're talking about SCAB-related business or a city issue that SCAB would be discussing, and you have 3 or more people, that's the problem. But if you're at like my birthday party and you're all coming here, like that's fine as long as we're not talking about like we don't have we don't peel off and start talking about food security or like a different priority for the board, right? So it's about like if you run into someone at a bar like and then Lonnie shows up too, we don't have to like suddenly disperse. Right. So it's about are you discussing the business in that moment?
Mm-hmm.
If so, that becomes a problem. Or
Yeah.
if you would risk getting into that pretty easily,
Yeah.
then you want to be careful about that.
And especially taking it to if decisions are being made. You know, that's why they don't want it to be. They want it to be more transparent. They want to know when these decisions were discussed and made. And sometimes they had been made at, you know,
Right.
non-official ways or non-official meetings. And people didn't like
so
that.
the
They were
meeting
like,
that was held the other day with the Friends, when Arlene went and John and Ronnie, Dave. How did
is that their
work?
monthly Friends meeting?
No. It was a retreat.
It was a retreat.
Oh, I didn't know about that. Okay. What?
So was that okay? Because they went and discussed business. I mean, I'm just trying to sort this out.
I know, tell me about it.
We were there, we didn't discuss SCAB business, as Matthew pointed out. We were there as part of an extension, essentially, to the Friends of Longmont. They were asking for individuals, there was essentially a workshop, so we had a board where we were kind of ranking priorities for the Friends of Longmont in terms of investments and things like that. So it wasn't like any of us were getting up there saying, well, the Senior Center Advisory Board says we should promote this. It was an individual, John Pillman, Jay Brenna, Arlene, etc. What are, out of these particular options, what do we believe as an individual makes sense to put a priority on?
Okay.
So you were doing strategic planning?
Yes.
Okay. Gotcha.
Good.
Gotcha.
Which really was already done. We just voted on it. I mean, it was sort of we just voted on
they already
priorities.
had kind of
It was already done. Yeah. So Friends Board does not have a public invited to be heard.
I do not. How does Friends Board go?
They don't.
David,
I haven't been to one.
I think they do.
do they?
each meeting, they have on the agenda, don't they have an item for public to be heard? They're a 501c3, so they're a public
I would
agency.
imagine they have to
And
use it if the public is there.
Yeah.
If they're
Yeah.
sitting with the agenda and they're starting the meeting and they know there's public
I
there
know, anytime anybody
waiting
has-
to speak, then that's where it fits
Right.
in.
Anytime
They're not
anybody has
extension
come,
of
they've
council.
honored the
So they
request.
have different rules. They don't have. They're not bound by the same
Right.
rules you are.
They're not a
They,
government entity.
Yeah.
yeah, so it's not like they have to post their meetings or
Right.
like in public
They don't
or
have quorum to worry about.
literally like it let the public know, but public is allowed in those meetings and to
Yeah.
attend and to speak.
That's
Yeah,
their
they
choice as an
can
organization.
speak.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, they don't have to let the public speak. I mean, they do, but they don't. They're not required to.
Gotcha. And I know that when we started talking about, when I started talking about when I'm going to be going to the Friends meeting and talking about outreach and actually bringing the idea to them, and I said I'm going to have to ask either Dave or John not to go because that would make 3 members. And somebody said, well, to make that a meeting where you could all go, they would not only have to post it, but they'd have to record it.
Yeah.
And
Right.
they're not used to having their
And they
meetings
don't record.
recorded. They don't
Okay.
record their meetings,
All right,
so
that
that
makes
could
a
be a
difference.
sticky point right there where they may say, you know, we don't like the idea of having our meeting recorded. So, yeah, so we'll have to, when we come to that, we'll cross that bridge. Okay, anything else on these subjects? Okay, let's move along to the manager's report. I do have it here. Did everybody get a chance to read it?
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions at all? Ronnie asked me to make sure that everybody had an opportunity to read it, and if there were any questions, to pass them on to him and let him know, you know, what people were wondering about. So, the Go Book is coming out. It's going to be December, so it'll probably be here, what, July or August?
Usually the first week of August.
Okay. And the Northern Arapahoe Friends visit is continuing. He's working on that. That's going to be July 9th through the 13th. And that's at the Wind River Reservation, the Northern Arapahoe Exchange. We had a great meeting with staff, Friends Board, and Advisory Board representative to discuss, that's the strategic planning, okay?
Yeah, there were three things that got focused on and kind of ranked. So the expansion to the senior center seemed to get the most votes, but it's also the most expensive, right? So it's kind of in a class by itself, right? Because it's roughly $3 million, right? Which is beyond really anybody's current funding. The second one was the technology upgrade, which was, what's that?
Staff.
Was staff number 2? Okay. So expanding staff, it says in there, bilingual support and some other initiatives that would be helpful if we had some staffing increases. I think that was part of Randy's, that fell under Randy's organization. Resource specialists, things like that. And then the third one was the technology upgrade, which was interesting because originally it was identified at roughly $100,000, I think. But actually, Dave, did you bring this up? A couple of people brought up that, well, we could probably get most of that donated, right? So HP, we've got a number of technology companies in the Front Range in this general area. So there was some discussion with the Friends about maybe approaching HP, Seagate, Micron, whatever, and seeing if we could get, Ronnie's fully aware of this. When I talked to Ronnie, he said, already on it. So he has some plans to approach some organizations about some sort of grants or donations.
Excellent. Okay. He also met with Councilwoman Yarborough and Senator Wallace to discuss challenges for the seniors are facing in our community. He was able to share impact our increasing senior population is having on our staff through the services we provide, and the impact of anticipating with the Boulder County projections over the next 25 years. So what did they say, by 1930?
1930.
2030.
It's going to be, like Boulder County seniors is going to be 30% of the population in Boulder, right?
Arlene, we just, I thought that was that we're there now, I think. Over 55, we're there
Yeah.
now.
Oh, okay.
We're pretty close to that, yeah.
Pretty close.
Are we really?
Yeah. 28, 29, we're real close.
Including the 50, dropping it to
If you drop
55
it
from
55.
65. I get you. Okay. The scheduled maintenance will take place July 21st to August 4th. That's when the senior center will be closed. The SCTC 25 years of celebration, they had 90 participants approximately in attendance. The budget requests have been submitted for review and approval. And we have 2 new vehicles for trips on site and ready help support our wait list. So the new vehicles are from, again, the Friends of the Senior Center, and they are the things that we've been discussing now for about a year and a half. So I guess they're on site. Are they actually on site?
Yes.
They're here?
Yep.
Excellent. Okay. Does anybody else have any other questions? Hang on one sec. Losing my agenda. I don't know why that's happening. Okay. Board updates. Does anybody have anything they want to bring up or update us on, whether it's a particular project you're working on as a subcommittee, or if there's any ideas you have that you want to discuss? This is the time to do it.
I'll do the employment one. It's not
Okay.
technically on there, but Dave and I had a meeting with Sheila Hart from the national organization, the SCSCP, and one of the things we learned was that they impact a really, really small segment. It's basically seniors that are 125% of the poverty line. So I put a little math in there that said, if the poverty line's $15,000 for an individual, then 125% would be $18,000 annual income. There are seniors certainly that fall within that, but it's a pretty small subset versus other seniors that could use help and need or want employment. So the other challenge with SCSEP, I think, is that they can only accommodate a small, because of resources, they can only do, I think, what would you say, they can only do like 40 or 50.
In the whole area.
Yeah, in the whole area. It's like in our area that she represents, they can only sponsor and get hooked up with host organizations of like 40 to 50 people a year. So it's just not a lot. It's important. We're going to still continue to focus on it, but it's just not a lot. So what we've agreed, Dave and I, is that we need to put more efforts into Boulder workforce, because they touch a much broader part of our community.
Okay.
So David had a discussion in the past. He's kind of passed it over to me now. So I'm going to get a hold of Tina and Lily and talk to them.
I think Boulder Workforce is there, to help us, and they want to put together a program that might be significant for older people, for seniors, that could be substantial. Not more than 3 or 4 like we get out of this other program. But they have a problem with funding, and none of us know where that's going to go right now. But I think the main thing I would say, the main point is that they are receptive to developing something over time, and I think that's a key thing.
Yeah. Ronnie and I had a brief, Dave was copied on that too. Oh shoot, that probably broke them. Anyway, I understand your frustration, trust me. But anyway, Ronnie did respond that we are, we're going to sit down with the resource specialist. So I wanted to shadow one, but that's from a privacy perspective, I can't do that. But we can set up a meeting with a resource specialist. I really want to understand more about what they do, but also to see what we can do in terms of referrals. So if we could get the resource specialist give them some information. So if somebody comes in and wants to meet with the resource specialist and says, I need to work. Understand what they do today to field that request, and then see what we can do to help them to get information into that person's hands to say, here are organizations that you can contact and reach out to for employment. That could be a real kind of a low-hanging fruit, right?
Mm-hmm.
To allow us to at least to get people channeled into, because as I say in here, we've got Habitat for Humanity, Goodwill, El Comité, there was another one here somewhere. We've got Boulder Workforce themselves. We've got hosting organizations for that one group, and then Boulder Workforce obviously is much larger than that and covers a broader swath of the community. So if we can get resources into the senior center to channel people to those organizations, that could be a really good way to get started.
Absolutely. You're bringing up, I mean, you're starting something we never even touched on before.
Yeah.
So I think that's so important. I think this is a great
I think it's
additional
important.
resource, that you guys are providing. It's excellent.
I think it's really important that this is the beginning stage, and I think we can build this into something, but it's going to take some time.
Sure.
It's not going to be this year, but maybe even next year.
Yeah. Right.
But if we kind of focus on it, because it's a real need, and
Right.
almost everybody agrees on that.
And we make it part of our strategic planning that even if we're, as we fade off the board, it stays as part of the strategic plan. So that it, it can continue even after, the people who have started it are no longer involved. So.
Can I go back to the Friends group for a second?
Sure.
You guys covered a lot of it, so I just want to emphasize a couple of things. They started the discussion with kind of a blue sky kind of thing, and everybody just kind of threw ideas out, and then from there it evolved into kind of what's possible or what are some practical kinds of things that we might do. But the question always comes to money, and what this strategic planning was really mostly about. Now, you guys correct me if you saw it differently, but it was mostly about raising money. They got $3 million right now. What sounds like a lot, and we just spent $200,000 on the 2 vans, which is a good expenditure. On the other hand, if we don't do anything, that $3 million is just going to go downhill in a hurry, because the annual amount of contribution just isn't that much. Last year they had a couple of big contributions, like at least $100,000 contribution last year. They don't usually get that. So I think that's what was really driving this strategic planning meeting a couple of weeks ago. Was where do we get the money? And I think they came up with some good ideas, but it's not over. They'll be studying this some more. The ranking, I don't think you guys mentioned this, but the ranking of the areas that they want to give support to, they put some worksheets up on the wall, and we all put our little red buttons up on the little red stickers up on there, and the one that was the most important, got the most votes, was for staff, resource specialist in particular. And that's always the case. We advocated for that before, but it's still a big problem. So that was the number one concern.
Was it close?
Actually, it was. There was 23 votes. Then the next one was 18 votes for building expansion, whatever that might be. But classroom expansion was a key one. And then the last one is technology, replacement of upgrades, audio, visual, projectors, and that sort of thing. So those were kind of the priorities as that group saw it, and I think that's about where it is, and they'll go from there. But I thought it was really worthwhile.
Excellent. Thanks for that report. Thanks for that report.
Oh, okay.
I know that when I've spoken to people since I've been on the board, some of the feedback I got about the Friends group from the people who were involved in the Friends group was that they really wanted to have a consistent fundraising plan in action.
And
like where they're consistently getting funds in, and then they're knowing what they can spend and give out.
This is a good source of of funding. I think a lot of people, Chuck, the former chair, told me when he started coming to our meetings, remember, he said he had no idea, and the Friends group really has no idea of all of the kinds of things that we do and that we're involved in. So again, I'm a stuck record, but we need to keep communicating back and forth.
Yes.
So we get some of the money, you know.
Yeah.
And
Maybe
keep on their
we'll
radar
invite
and
them.
vice versa.
Maybe we'll invite them to our meeting.
You know, I think that's a good idea.
How about in August? I'm just looking, so I'm just kind of spitballing this one. In August, we discussed 2026 board vacancies. So that's when we find out who's going to be going off it, how many spaces are going to be available, who we want to start looking at as far as encouraging people we know to apply and things like that. That's not a long discussion. You know, that doesn't take a great deal of time. My gut instinct says that's a meeting that there could be a good amount of time available, a nice amount of time available, to have the friends in.
Yeah.
To have them here, not just as, you know, people to listen to what our meeting is about, but to participate.
Yeah.
And to get, you know, have dialogue back and forth and talk about
This
things.
is strictly my opinion, but I'm gonna say it anyway. I don't think, as well-meaning as the Friends group is, and as hard as they try, they don't really get the services that are provided by the senior center. They get the programs, but they don't get the services. And that's a big hole. That's something we need to work on.
Do you think maybe you could recommend to Ronnie, or we could recommend to Ronnie, that he actually have somebody who could talk about all that, go to a Friends meeting? Put it
Sure.
on the agenda at the Friends meeting, to have somebody, a resource specialist, whatever, go
Yeah.
to that meeting and talk about what it is they do.
Well, you know what they do, like Brandy, for example, goes regular, like,
Oh, she does,
and she
okay.
has to justify to the group the spending for, what do they call that? You know,
Scholarship?
Or last something.
Yeah,
Last resort.
yeah. And anyway, you know, for dental work, for
Okay.
rentals and that kind of stuff, she has to spend a lot of time talking about that, rather than really the big picture. You know,
Okay.
What are all of the services? What is the support service? What is the counseling program trying to do? They don't get that, I don't think. Now, I might be underestimating them, but I don't think so.
Why don't we recommend to Ronnie
Yeah.
that either he be prepared to speak at a meeting or somebody else be prepared on the agenda.
Yeah.
They come in and they talk about all the
They-
services that are available here.
They've been told before, that's not it. This is that you gotta beat them over the head or something, or.
But if they focus on one person giving the presentation,
Yeah,
that may
that
catch
would-
their
that might
attention
help.
to
Yeah,
where.
that'd help.
I have
Okay, go ahead.
a suggestion here, not overstepping and inserting myself on your agenda here, but just a suggestion, hearing a couple of priorities. If you were going to invite them to talk about, the Friends to talk about funding priorities, whether it was August or whenever, if you were going to invite a bunch of them here to do that, maybe make it a mutual exchange where in that same meeting, if you design the agenda with enough space, you also have that discussion about the services at that same time. So you're hearing from them on the funding discussion and engaging, and then offering some of the services conversation.
Yeah.
The advantage of that is it's also recorded, and so anyone who can't attend can be sent the recording and can reference that recording in the future on some of the services that are offered that you want to really make sure to highlight, whether it's staff highlighting, board members, and both. So just a potential kind of mutual exchange that can
Yeah.
happen.
That is a
What-
good idea because, well, go ahead and then I'll say.
I was gonna say, just, there's one thing you gotta be careful of, and that is that they're very jealous of their authority, they're very jealous of their program, and I guess we all are.
You mean protective of it?
Yeah, protective
Okay.
of it, you know, and I guess that's enough said on that. They also are a little skeptical of the city council, and I think they've been burned in the past. And I don't know exactly what it was, but the city council, they've gotten into arrangements, I think, where they expected the city council to provide some sort of dollars for something, I think maybe for staff. Maybe some of you know more about it than I do. So there's a little antagonism there, I think. you have to be aware of. It can be overcome. I'm just saying it's there.
Well, we don't have to worry about that for our meeting if we're talking about a meeting in August.
Yeah.
And I love that idea because I was thinking that's what they would be here for. It's to talk back and forth with us, but making our conversation about what the services are that we're actually asking for is the ideal time to do it. So I like that. Let's recommend that to Ronnie, that we can decide just to do it, right, as the board. We'll make that part of the agenda for August. We'll find out, we'll put it out it'll give us time to put it out they can announce it at their July meeting, Friends July meeting, and just invite everybody to come. And we'll be prepared if there's a good group of people, we'll be prepared to, have somebody get up and talk about our side of it, and then they can get up and talk about their side of it. I like that idea a lot.
Makes sense.
Anything else going on? Anything else anybody wants to talk about?
I just have 2 comments. I didn't see a council liaison update on the agenda. So if this
I'm sorry. Yeah, we didn't
is this
put
the
it
appropriate
in.
place? Yeah, I just didn't see it on this one. So if this is
Okay.
if this is not the appropriate place, I can hold.
Go for it.
Okay. Super quickly, just wanted to offer, first of all, thank you all for the continued conversation. I look forward to joining you guys again in July. I just wanted to offer, I heard some passing comments in the discussion earlier about city processes or discussion on like transportation issues or planning and development issues or sustainability issues. If I have gone on a crash course over the last 4 months to learn a lot of this firsthand, mostly by force and partly by choice. And so if anyone wants to sit down independently of this, I'll stick around after to give you my card so we can just chat via email and then meet up. If you want to just meet here for coffee or whatever and just talk about any of those issues or other topics on your mind, just open offer there. I'm happy to share what I have learned about some of the processes that we have and why they exist and the pros and cons of them, as well as some of the specific topics. And my background from a professional expertise standpoint is in sustainability, working with utilities, land use planning, and to some degree transportation as well. So if you want to just understand what I've seen in other cities too, happy to share that. Other than that, I just want to say I'm really glad I could finally make it in person. I had the pleasure of meeting Lonnie and Anne and John in different settings already, Eric, Arlene, and Dave. Great to meet you all today. And I think it's the other 3 members, John, Marta, and Maria, who aren't here today. I've had a chance to meet with them separately in other settings too. So great to finally meet the whole group here. And please don't hesitate to reach out.
Yeah.
And you could join us on the 14th to help with the food distribution.
If you're not playing at the farmer's market.
No, I just did that last weekend.
Okay. There are times that Matt is booked at the farmer's market to play.
Oh yes.
Piano, right?
Piano. Yes, piano and vocal.
Okay.
July 12th will be the next one.
Okay. Ryan, do you have anything you want to share? Anything to report or anything to clarify what we've
Words of
heard
wisdom?
today?
Well, I don't know if I have any words of wisdom. Not necessarily, no.
Okay. I just wanted to give you an opportunity in case you wanted it. If you'd all look, future agenda items are set for what we're going to be talking about at various meetings, so you can kind of peruse that and see what's going on.
So I'm just wondering if we're giving enough time in July for those 3 people. Again, this morning, we had the presentation and we went, of course, beyond the time, which we have a tendency to do in here.
Yep.
Do you think that we have enough time that everybody can get their 2 cents in and say what they want for 3 presentations?
Well, you figure that we gave them a half an hour and we gave them another 15 and they even went over that.
They got
Not
almost
to
an
their
hour
fault.
this-
It was
yeah.
interesting and we
Yeah.
needed to hear it.
It was almost an hour.
So it's almost an hour. I don't know. We might be squeezing things in to think these 3, because one of these I think was, I don't remember which one, but one of them was supposed to be today. And so that's why they moved it into July. Let's talk to Ronnie about that and find out if we do maybe take advantage of August or you know, we leave it at July, we'll talk to them about it and see what's going on. Okay? Anything else at all?
Question
Matt?
for you, Elaine.
Sure.
Are you kind of our point person regarding housing?
Yes.
Okay, okay. I can talk to you offline.
Sure. Sure. Anything else? Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second? All right. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming today.
Thank you.